Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, welcome in Wolves fans. It is Daily Wolves, although it's international break period, so it's not Daily Wolves, but I am Chris, and with me as always is Will. Hey Will.
Hello. I was going to say Happy Tuesday, but I'm not sure if this will be out on Wednesday or Tuesday by the time our technology has stopped playing with us. But we're here nevertheless.
Yeah, it's been a tough time in Daily Wolves Towers for technology, but it's fine. It's fine. We get through, we muddle through, and we are here for you. And yeah, just as an alert, going forward, basically, because we are 5 days a week during normal league match weeks. During international break periods, we will do a couple less each week, so maybe 2 or 3 a week, just to because there isn't as much going on in the world. But whenever there is something of importance, we will be there, as always. All right, but obviously today we're going to look back at the Nottingham Forest game and discuss our thoughts on that, which I'm sure Will is burning to speak about. But as always, there you heard it from his mouth. But as always, we should touch on any kind of breaking news. And Will, I presume, Will, that you listened to my dulcet tones summarize the transfer deadlines on Transfer Day.
Yeah, and we've got even more sort of updates since then, although nothing that you didn't already speculate on, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
yeah, indeed.
I'll let you do the honors in terms of updating our listeners as to what's gone on since we last spoke.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we did on that very episode last Friday discuss the potential move of Daniel Podence to Saudi Arabia. That has indeed been confirmed. It's gone ahead. He has joined Al Shabab for 5 million euros. So 5 million euros coming to Wolves. And also they are going to get a 35% sell-on clause included in that deal. So whilst, he is a Marmite player, a lot of people probably will be happy to see the back of him, given that he's been, on loan recently and didn't seem to want to be part of the team. But as with most of the players under Gary O'Neill, he seemed a bit happier being around the squad coming back this summer. However, supposedly, who's going to turn down Saudi money? Well, who's going to turn it down?
Yeah, I think it makes sense for everyone involved, to be honest with you. You said he was a bit of a Marmite player. I still don't know. I don't know if I like him or dislike him. I just can't tell.
He has flashes like we saw in the Burnley game last week. The through ball he played to Guedes for the one goal was, his vision. He does have moments of vision where he just is able to pick people out, and he scored some crucial winning goals for us in previous seasons. So that can't be forgotten.
No, he scored some very, very important goals, as you said. But I do just want to touch on, you mentioned there his cameo in the cup for us against Burnley.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching it, and his first sort of involvement in the game was to try a flick pass in our own half and lost the ball, and then it came back to him and he did it again and lost it again. And I just thought, it's nice to see that some things don't change even since he's been away. But like you said, he at the same time he came up for the goods for us when we needed it most. I just think, I don't know if you saw this, Chris, but when his move to Saudi Arabia was, officially announced, he took to his Instagram to write a goodbye and thank you message.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
to Olympiacos, and then he did follow it up shortly after with one to Wolves. But I think that just initial post, do you know what I mean? I think it just sums him up in a weird sort of way.
Yeah, no, I do totally get what you mean. And before we move on, well, there's one more piece of player news relating to the goalkeeper news. I will just say that out of a random point of note, my cat has sat right next to my microphone and is purring loudly. So you may get some ASMR type sounds rumbling in the background beneath my voice, but just enjoy it. Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
But the other big note, of course, of the weekend was the lack of Jose Sarr from the squad with the incoming of Sam Johnston. And there was obviously, I think I discussed in that very episode on Friday that the likelihood was he could be going also in the direction of Saudi Arabia, but any potential move for him has fallen through. And so Jose Sarr is going to be still with the squad at least until January, and unless I believe that he randomly goes to Turkey, because the Turkish window is open a bit longer, but that seems unlikely. So most likely with us till at least January. However, it has also been reported today that goalkeeper Dan Bentley is expected to be the number 2 behind Sam Johnston going forward. Now, whether or not that will play out, that remains to be seen. However, I mean, what do you make of it? What do you make of it, Will?
Well, so let me just, to put this into context, I'm going to put this timeline of events in order, and correct me if I'm wrong at any point. But I just want to wrap my head around this, because it's one that I don't really understand, or at least there has to be more to it that us as mere mortals, don't see behind the scenes. But going into the season, Sarr was, as he has been the past few years, our number 1 goalkeeper, and nobody expected any different. Then towards the end of the transfer window, there were rumours of us looking at Sam Johnston for 10 million.
Yeah,
which
after it should be said, lots of Aaron Ramsdale speculation as well.
Oh yes. Sorry, I had just gladly forgotten about that. But that at the time was half of our supposed transfer budget as well, if you remember, with that 20 million figure that was thrown about randomly. So it all seemed very random. Then deadline day, Johnson was announced, that deal had all gone through. And then the very next day, Johnson's playing 90 minutes instead of Sarr against Forest away. And Sarr's not in the squad at all, supposedly because of transfer ongoings on his end, like you said, to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Then since then, that move has fallen through, as you said, and he could possibly go to Turkey, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. And then it's reported that he's going to stay and fight for his place, and be the number 2 and try and earn his spot back. And then it's reported then that Bentley is in fact the number 2 and is signing a contract extension, which completely freezes Sarr out of the squad completely in the matter of what, less than a week, just a matter of days.
Yep. I mean, yeah. You mentioned that it has also been reported, as you mentioned, that Dan Bentley they're going to trigger his contract extension option.
Yeah, I just find it so weird. There's obviously something going on that we don't know about. That's the only thing I can think of, to have such a drastic change in such a short amount of time. With like no real clear reasoning. I've mentioned to you before, Chris, that the rumours were that O'Neill and his backroom staff never really rated Sarr that highly.
No, I mean, it's clear they want to play out from the back. It's clear to everyone who's ever been to a game or watched it live that everyone gets kittens when Jose is on the ball, because it always feels like he could give it away. So clearly not necessarily fitting with what Gary Neal wants, which is ironic, because the reason Jose Sarr originally came in was supposedly because he was better with his feet than Patricio, which I suppose he was or is, because Patricio is even more just of like an old school shot stopper. But yeah, not still not at the level they want in terms of like playing out from the back, because it does scare me. He does scare me. I think, as we've said, he's a great shot stopper, but he scares me with the ball at his feet.
Well, the best way that I've ever seen him summed up, and I'm sure you've probably heard or seen this as well, or it might even have been you who said it to me, Chris, was when he doesn't have time to think
Mm-hmm.
and it's just purely instinct based and just reactions and ability, he is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But you let that man's sort of brain start ticking, the clogs start turning, and then, like you said,
The clogs
yeah,
start turning.
everyone's sort of on their edge of their seat for all the wrong reasons at Molyneux. You can feel the sort of nervous
You can feel the
wave.
anxiety, the
Yeah.
palpitations. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But
Well,
it's still a
it's
weird one.
it is interesting, and we'll remain to see if he's going to feature on the bench at all. I mentioned that on Friday again, and I want to repeat that it seemed very evident from the very start that Johnston was going to be starting, if not
Mm.
Saturday, like could be the starter going forward. In
Hmm.
his first interview with Wolves TV, and various articles on that first like transfer day, he the way he spoke, the answers he gave in regards to reasons for coming and how the Wolves team had spoken to him, and then Gary Neal had spoken to him, it was very much the sound of a player that expected to play. It didn't sound like
Yeah.
someone coming to be a backup, and it didn't sound like even someone like when Daniel Bentley came in and he was like, "I'm here to prove that I can be a great number two, but also I want to push Jose Sarr." And it was very much a number two person speaking, whereas
Yeah.
this was a player coming in speaking in a way that like, no, I'm playing. That's the vibe
Yeah.
I got. That's the vibe I got, that he was expecting to play, and sure enough, straight in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, before we move on to how, because we could start the game discussion with how we thought he did. Um, was there any other? Oh, though obviously one element before we pause for a second is that Daniel Podence going and Jose Sarr staying.
Mm.
The other stayer, use that's a new term I've just come up with, um, is Guedes. Guedes is not going anywhere. Guedes is staying again, at least till Jan, if not the season. And the I'm happy if Gary Neal can make him happy and give us. So this, we would not have ever expected this 2 years ago, but
No.
here he is. Here he is. He's scored 2 goals in midweek, and he looks like he could be at least a very usable asset off the bench.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I would say is if you asked me 2 weeks ago, for example, if I wanted Podence or Gredes to stay, or for them both to stay, or for them both to go,
Mm.
I would have chosen the last option personally. Um, but as we've just been on about, things change and change drastically. It could be that not only does he stay and be part of the squad, it could be that he plays a big part and scores goals for us this season. You know,
Well,
that's
yeah,
that's the plan
his
at least, I suppose.
yeah. I mean, his second finish against Burnley was a beautiful chip over the goalie. I mean, it
Hmm.
was a player, and what they mean by that, it was clearly someone playing with confidence, and
Yeah.
that was great. There was no doubt, it was perfect. But whilst we have all these transfer stories, the real question, everyone out there, is: do you have a story to tell that the world needs to hear? Have you struggled with reaching new audiences who are engaged with your story? It might be time for you to start a podcast. Let me tell you about a platform we use here at Global Sports Podcast Network. Zencastr makes it easy to start a high quality podcast built for growth from day one. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes ums, ahs, you knows, and 22 other speech patterns, Zencastr makes it super easy to start a podcast that sounds great. Ready to tell your story? Check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. All right, well, so we spoke about Sam Johnston coming straight in. So let's
Hmm.
start there with the weekend's game away to Burnley. Obviously, everyone knows, anyone listening to this by now is probably well aware, because we're all hardcore Wolves fans out there. We and 1-1 draw away to Nottingham Forest. Sorry, but how did you think Sam Johnston did?
I I think he played well. I think he was probably, you know, um, Probably, yeah, better than Saar.
Mm.
Based off one game, I think it was a strong debut. He made one really good save from a Chris Wood header, who always seems to score against us.
Yeah,
Um,
it was inevitable. I mean,
yeah,
but that's also the scary thing is that he was so unmarked for the first goal, and I have to say that when I first
mm,
saw that live, that was the one moment of Sam Johnston's game. I was like, oh, he looked like it kind of went through his arms, like he flailed, like he dove. I'm sure he possibly saw it late because there was quite a cluster, but
yeah.
I feel like he would probably have expected to do better there. He seemed to go. I don't know if you saw that. It seemed to go, from my perspective, it looked like it almost went through him.
I just think Madueke scored a hat trick for Chelsea against us, where each and every goal seemed to go through Saar. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm being nitpicky. I'm being nitpicky, and it's
yeah,
his
no,
first
no,
game.
yeah,
First game at very short notice with a whole new, team. So I'm not going to knock him too much on that first half, performance. And like you say, made up for it completely with a great one-handed save much later on in the game. But I think, but he did look quite confident on the ball as well. I thought,
yeah, and that's why we've spent 10 million, I suppose. Um,
indeed,
and I mean, just moving on from the goalkeeping situation and looking at the defense as a whole, um, I I wouldn't say I predicted, but I said in one of our recordings last week that if I was in O'Neill's shoes, I would have gone for a back five against Forest.
yeah, because the team sheet came out. Obviously, we
Yeah.
didn't know necessarily what formation was going to be played, and there were Twitter, lit up with, "Oh my god, he's gone to back five. What's he doing?" Blah blah blah. Lots of debates over what it was going to be. Eight Nori playing as well as Totti, and like you had Dawson. You've got all the central defenders in there
Mm,
essentially. Semedo back in, which was a shame for Doc because not a shame because we knew like Semedo has to play, but Doc was
yeah.
probably one of the few players, despite the two heavy losses, that actually came out with some, credit in those first two games. I think he's been pretty
Yeah.
solid.
Yeah.
But we were all guessing what he was going to do, and it actually wasn't so much a five at the back. I mean, yes, it can probably drop into that at any time it wants, but Eight Nori was more on the wing. It was more of a 4-4-2 with Totti at left back and Eight Nori out on the left wing.
Yeah. No, it was old school. But I thought he had listened to me and switched to a back five. So I was surprised to see that we hadn't. And I think it worked. I wouldn't persist with it going forwards in terms of Totti left back, just
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think I know he is as good, from that left midfield position as he is from perhaps a wing back or left back because
I
of
mean,
the sort of deeper runs he makes, I suppose.
you say that, but I mean, he did have one. He had like one cracking run that covered most of the pitch at one point, which he could have put away. Obviously,
Yeah,
first couple of minutes almost, he had a chance he should have slotted away. That was a left back's finish. Um, but I feel like he's still very much involved. And you think to last season, the latter part of last season, when we had all those injuries and he was playing in a variety of spots,
yeah.
he was scoring and assisting, and not playing left back or left
No,
wing
but
back even at
I think
points.
I think the best we've ever seen him play was as a wing back.
Mm.
Um, you know, and I think he works better when there's a winger in front of him to connect with and to perhaps occupy a player. But he'll still get involved no matter where you put him. Of course, that's just because of the sheer amount of quality on the ball that he
Yeah,
possesses. I think is second to none.
yeah.
Really, I think perhaps only Cunha is better on the ball in terms of going past people first, and even then, I think it's close. Um,
I think
and
Eight
so,
Nori's ball control is probably tighter. I think Cunha's just
yeah,
more direct and
yeah.
like you know rapid, whereas Eight Nori's just kind of languid and just flows
Mm.
past people because he's got that very relaxed style that's just like almost dragging the ball along.
Yeah, but I just, I think okay, he's not covered himself in glory so far this season playing at left back, um, but he's not a wing back or left midfielder because he can't defend. You know, he's pushed up there because he's that good going forward.
Hmm.
I've seen him put in some unbelievable defensive performances before. I remember, in fact, on multiple occasions, he's locked Salah up when we've played against Liverpool. I remember
Yes.
there's that um, one game at home. I forget which season it was now. I think it was under Large, when I think he got injured and Hoover came on
Yeah, and
in
then he
place of
gave
him
it,
and
and
cost
then
it
we
for
yeah we
us.
conceded in like the
Yeah,
last
but
moments.
I remember that game specifically, and Aït was a monster defensively, and so the quality is there. And if you can work hard at the training ground, I would I would play him left back. Also because of the incoming of another player making his debut for us against Forest, Andre, who made a little cameo.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
you've jumped ahead in the whole
yes,
plethora of the game
yes,
here, but I was going to touch on Andre at some point. You've dropped the name, so we should do it because I mean I'm sure people are most excited about these things in terms of we've spoken about Sam Johnston, we're talking about
yeah,
where Eight Nori should play, which is a big debate that I think will go on possibly all season at this rate. And Andre came on for, let's call it a little cameo because it was just a small portion of the game at the
mm,
end. But I don't know about you. I made a point of watching him specifically, like off the ball,
mm,
and just paying real attention to see in the limited time we had of just get a glimpse. And again, obviously, literally just arrived straight onto the bench. You can't expect too much. But what I saw was someone who looked like, or you could see, because he has played a lot of games. I read out his history on the transfer deadline day, and I think he's like around 150 games
mm,
or something. And as a pro, and you could see anticipation. I saw someone who was trying to read the game well, and already cutting out passes and just like interceding and putting a stop to things. Very obviously João Gomez esque, similar mold, but there was clearly someone there who was like reading the game and cutting out threat.
yeah, yeah. No, he looks good. He looks very good, and I think a midfield three of him, Lamina, and Gomez. Because let's face it, you're not gonna splash out 20 million if you're tight for cash on someone who's not going to be involved.
Is
I
that too
think
much? Like, is that too? I
too
love them all,
defensive,
but too
too.
defensive. They're not necessarily. I think Jaume Gomez has shown flashes of creativity that he's going to grow
Mm,
into, but I mean, Lamina definitely is. Whilst Lamina has scored and things, I'm not saying they're not capable of certain aspects,
no,
but
no, I
but
know
you
what you're
think of what
saying.
they
Yeah,
are at their core. They're all like pitbull, terrier type, get stuck in midfielders. That seems like three of the same would be almost too much.
yeah. No, I do understand that, but I think with how sort of shaky we've been defensively, if you want to persist with the back four, you're going to need protection. And with how good we've looked going forward at times, it's possible that we don't really need that much. We need more help defensively than we do attacking wise, is my point. So I could see them, if they want to persist with the back four, I could see that being the route they go down, switching from that 4-4-2 to a 4-3-3. And even then, that's what I would do, because you could bring in the likes of Doyle to add that creativity going forwards, and obviously you'd sacrifice one of the three lads we just mentioned there. But I think that's what I would do with the players we've got overall. Eight Nuri left back, and a nice sort of rigid, strong midfield packed closely together. Um,
Yeah, I hear you, and I'm wary that we're going very deep off we're going almost
yeah,
into like
yeah, no,
tactical
my bad.
Tuesday as opposed to just the game discussion. There's so much about the game still to talk about. But what I will say is, in the midst of, because we're on talking about the midfield, I almost feel a little bit sorry for Tommy Doyle, because I'm now thinking, is he going to get even less game time that Andre's come in? I know he on the plus side, he is different to the rest of those three
Yeah.
because we've said before I'm not going to mention the name because it made you upset last time, but he's like a previous player we had who very much wants to kind of like sit deep, spread the ball around, and like he's looking for the forward pass to play. He wants to be that creative linchpin that gets the assist and plays people in. You can see that. But he's not really featured much. He played the Burnley game, which was basically all subs and backup players in the League Cup. I think he's had a substitute appearance or two, but we've not seen much of him. And with Andre coming in, outside of injuries, I'm actually almost struggling to see where he's going to start featuring much. We've signed him, but I feel like he's going to be sat on the bench a lot.
Yeah, I think he is, but I think, he's still relatively young. And I do think he's a player that O'Neill likes. I'm pretty sure he's part of our sort of leadership group in the squad, despite being so young and such a new addition.
He looks about 12.
I know, but he's got that character about him, like you mentioned. He reminds us very very much of a former player of ours who, yeah, I'm not going to mention. But I wouldn't worry. I think it's a long season, and there's bound to be rotation, and whether that be in terms of the formation or just the personnel. I'm sure he'll see the minutes.
I'm sure he will get some rotation. I just feel
Yeah,
like like you say, he's still young, and I feel like he needs game time almost to get better and turn into the player we want. And I'm worried he's not going to get much of it. But
yeah.
hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong.
I think he's mature enough to develop with or
Mhm.
without it.
But focusing on the game for a second, because I'm aware, and we may run a couple of minutes longer at this rate, but. So we spoke briefly about the first goal. I was disappointed. I don't know about you, but I was disappointed with that goal we conceded.
Yeah,
Just it felt like a sloppy, and not the first time we've given away goals from corners. Obviously, this season we're only 3 games in. So that's concerning to me that we're conceding very easily already from set pieces, which is ironic because we employed a set piece coach this summer. So I'm a little bit confused, to be honest with you.
yeah.
But so obviously we mentioned Sam Johnston maybe will feel that he should have got more of that than he did, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on his first time with us. I am concerned that Chris Wood, who we both know is going to score against Wolves, was unmarked for that.
Yeah, I just think with
Go on.
it being Chris Wood, we could have had 11 people marking him, and he still would have found a way. It's just typical.
That's true. That's true. And then, but it was only a matter of minutes before we saw an absolute beauty from Bellegarde
Yeah.
to
Well,
make it
you
1-1. And I have to
mentioned
say, I was not expecting that.
you mentioned Tommy Doyle reminding us of a certain someone.
Mm.
I think that's the first time in a long while I've seen a Wolves player, probably since actually Tommy Doyle against Brentford last season, strike a ball like that from outside of the box, and it end up in the top corner.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
It
fact. Last season, we did not score a league goal outside the box.
Yeah, I mean, but we scored enough in
Oh, we did,
general.
but
So
I'm just making the point that
yeah,
that is that
yeah,
you mentioned it had been a while. It has actually been a while.
yeah. You could just see how it set up for him. I think if I was a Forest fan, I'd be equally disappointed because he sort of stuttered just as
Mm,
it was setting, just as it was rolling, just to get himself ready. And I thought, watching it live, how you think things really quick. I thought, why is I don't know who their centre half was, but I remember thinking, why is he standing off? Why is he letting him
mm.
set himself? Why isn't he closing him down? And they paid the price for that because I mean, he caught it very very sweetly.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be surely up there already with goal of the season contender lists come, April, May. because I can't imagine people are going to strike many sweeter than that. So that was nice and unexpected. I did think we would get back into the game. I just didn't expect it would come in that
Yeah,
manner, given how
no,
given the recent ways we've been scoring such nice team goals. To see an individual effort like that was unexpected, but it made me happy. But then the rest of the game just felt. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think for probably the neutral tuning in, it was probably quite entertaining because it was quite end to end at points, and
yeah,
I feel like both teams had opportunities to win it. I'm sad that weren't able to push on in the second half and get a winner. However, we just as easily felt like we could have thrown it away in the last 5 minutes.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
I think if I'm brutally honest, it was made entertaining only by the sort of lack of actual quality at
Yeah,
times. There was a lot of mistakes, and I think, you know, I'm aware that I'm coming across as quite downbeat, but it just looks like a display of two teams who, in the long run, over the course of the season, should survive, but not necessarily, you know, based off sheer performances. I can't see either us or Forest pushing for Europe, but I think there will just be three worse teams than us. That I think that game itself just told me that's how it's going to play out. And maybe I'm being a bit negative. I don't know, but those for the
yeah. I'm going to be
neutral
Mr.
exciting.
Optimistic. I'm going to be Mr. Optimistic because I feel like there are a lot of teams going to go to the Forest Ground this season and not go away with anything.
Mm,
I feel like they are tough at home. I feel like there's going to be more than three teams worse than us. I feel like there's a lot of positivity. I know we had the huge Chelsea thrashing, but I do think we won't see. I don't. I think Gary Neal is savvy enough to learn quickly from mistakes and realize we saw the
mm,
shift immediately in who was in the starting lineup this week and the tactical formation. We saw the shift. Obviously, there was other changes probably coming into that as well. He had to think about a new goalkeeper coming in. He had to think about the fact that he probably wanted to make sure he got a point on the board before the international break, because going into the international break 3 games in with 0 points,
no,
I'm
yeah,
sure he wanted to avoid that. So probably another factor in some of the change that we saw, because you know he brought in Craig Dawson, who arguably I think we both agreed is potentially up there as man of the match candidate.
yeah, absolutely immense. And just the difference he made to our defense, by just how good he is yeah, is criminally underrated by I think a lot of people in the wider football world. But we all see it. We all see it here at Wolves.
We'll see it, and he's shown that he's still got it, even in a back four. And I know other teams will come on more rapidly on the counter attack and things, but he looked he didn't look uncomfortable all day long. So more of Dawson, please. I think everyone can agree. However, I'll just take a moment to remind everyone that this podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network, every club, every day. Brackets excluding international breaks. Close brackets. All right. Well, so was there? We've spoken on some of the key things, the goals, Sam Johnston coming in, the change of formation. Was there any other kind of key things from the? And we spoke of Andre as well, the brief appearance that we
Mm-hmm.
had. Anything else from the game that stood out to you overall that you want to touch
Um,
on?
Not necessarily from the game, no. But just one thing I wanted to pick you up on just then when you said more Dawson, please.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Which
Yeah.
which I'm all for.
Mm.
Is I would also like to make a Santi Bueno
Oh
request.
yeah.
Just Gary, if you're listening,
Yeah.
just play him anywhere. Give him a game
Anywhere.
up top. You know.
And to be fair, we did discuss after the Burnley game that he, I think, left that game on high credit. I feel like he put himself out there and didn't do himself any harm. I feel like he and Dawson played really well that game. I know it was against Burnley, who made a lot of changes, but even so, he did what he had to do, and I
No,
think he did
well,
it well.
Chris, I was saying all summer long, all transfer window long, we never needed a centre half. We didn't need one.
We just need Santi Bueno.
Yeah.
Santi is his name. I don't know why I'm making that his song, but I'm making a song for Santi Bueno, and it's going to start like that somehow.
Yeah, it's getting sort of pieced together each episode.
Yep. Santi is his name. Okay, I'll think of more of that for next episode. We are running a little bit longer than normal, but obviously we only get a couple of these a week, and I know that it's getting on. But I will just take a moment to remind everyone that we've got international games coming up, hence less episodes this week. Call-ups, we obviously, what would have been lovely, to be honest, if Andre had time to settle in during this break period, and get to see Molyneux a bit more and the Compton and settle in with the training ground. But no, Andre's off with João Gomez on Brazilian duty. So he's literally flown into Wolverhampton for probably,
Yeah.
2-3 days? And then he's gone off again. Because they're playing in at least one of their games is in Brazil, I think, and the other's in Paraguay. So wow, they're going to be non-stop. Andre and João Gomez off. Sá and Semedo are off to Portugal. Your lovely beloved Santi Bueno is off on Uruguayan international duty. Doc is out off for Ireland. Hwang off with South Korea. Strand Larsen, of course, now another international in our ranks, is off on Norwegian duty. Mosquera, big up to Mosquera, who I thought with Dawson alongside him did really well at the weekend. He's off with Colombia. And that's, I think, all of the senior call-ups. And even though he's because I think we're going to consider him on the fringe of the. I'm considering him on fringe of the squad because I love him so much. Pedro Lima is off with Brazil under-20s as well, just so you know.
Well, I was just about to mention that Fabio Silva is off to Portugal's under-21s camp. Who did you mention? Have we mentioned that he's gone on loan to Las Palmas?
Yeah. Let me just round up those internationals, sorry, by pointing out that obviously our other new international that we haven't mentioned this episode because we haven't really. I did the transfer stuff the other day, but Forbes,
yes,
and Rodrigo Gomez are also off with the Portugal under-21s as well.
Mm-hmm.
But no, now finish off with your Fabio. Let's sign off, bid farewell to Fabio, and make that the farewell of our show, shall we?
You say bid farewell. There is no optional obligation to buy. It's just a straight season-long loan to Las Palmas. Hopefully, a couple of La Liga goals will recoup a bit of his value, which he lost last season, having probably gained a bit the season beforehand. So hopefully that he's able to score a couple over there and make up for it, and a sort of permanent departure will take place next summer, unless there's a Guedes situation.
Unless
he comes back to lead the line
like a phoenix rising from the flames. Yeah, because I mentioned to you that I feel like it's maybe an hope that he'll, having kind of ruined his value last season, I think somewhat with his trips, particularly to the likes of Rangers, that maybe this is a chance for him to try and, if he scores a few goals, like you mentioned on the continent, to be able to build up a bit of value and maybe get a better price for him next summer. Fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm.
Fingers crossed. All right, Will. Anything else you want to touch on before our next international period episode?
No, not really. It's different this time. The transfer window being shut. I can just sleep safely knowing that, in theory at least, there won't be any major updates that we miss overnight.
No. And I will say, I think, Mr. Optimism is back in the house, just to say that we've got a point on the board. So we are not bottom. We're only 3 games in. And I know we've got September coming, which the fixture list is not bright. But I'm going to say that it's, I think we're going to be this is going to be my thing going forward. I've said it the other day. I think it might have been when I was on my own. But I'm just going to say it to you, Will, and to everyone out there. Everything's going to be okay.
Yes, I agree.
All right. There you go. You can have a lovely day, people, or sleep well, whatever time you're listening to this in the daytime. And just remember, it's all going to be okay in the end. Okay. All right then. All right. Well, it's been fabulous. I'm going to let you go and let's just let everyone else go, and we will see you next episode. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.